so high I'm hypnotized. What's up is down, what's left is right. Chasing stars and holding you. I can't see the end, but we'll see it through.
Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the Armory. Welcome to Full Time Sports Network. Welcome, Brandon. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I'm doing really well. Still on the hype from beating Manchester City. Get in there. And yeah, nothing's going to get me down for the next 2 weeks at the very, very least. So,
well, I'm going to bring you down very quickly, to be fair. Look, I love the fact that we beat Man City. What happened the Tuesday before, I haven't forgotten. I haven't forgotten that. This is the thing. I love the fact that we beat Man City. It's absolutely fantastic. Great performance second half. But that Tuesday performance in France has not left my brain. I do all the watch-alongs on here. It doesn't leave my brain. I'm sorry. That's what concerns me, is we are hot and cold. And I think, personally, it's mainly halves that we've had good performances in, apart from the PSV game where I think we were very good. They were awful, in all fairness, but at least we dominated and we scored 4 goals, and it was the best watch-along I've enjoyed. What about you, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely, you're definitely right. I think PSV is definitely our best game of the season so far. We look a lot more like the Arsenal of last season, more scintillating, 4 quick fire goals, 3-0 up at half time. That's the Arsenal that we all want to see. That's the Arsenal that we see last season, dominating games, dominating teams, getting games won, quickly and out of the way, and then moving on to the next. But yeah, I understand the skepticism. I have the skepticism as well. We're blowing very hot and cold at the moment. And if we're being real, in quite a lot of our games, we've been, I wouldn't say lucky, but we haven't been great in terms of our performance levels. And, we look at the Crystal Palace game, for an example. One penalty wins us the game. On another day, maybe that's not a penalty. Maybe, Thomas Partey infringes the player. They don't give it, and then we're looking at like Everton. I think we played all right against Everton. Fulham conceding sloppy goals, straight from kickoff as well. How many times have we seen that, at Arsenal, especially at home as well? So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely causes for concern, but I think there's reasonings behind why we're not playing as well as what we probably hope. I think a large part of that is, I'm not a fan of stats, but if you look at the stats, Gabriel Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, and Bukayo Saka haven't started many games together this season. And that was definitely our best front three last season, by a country mile. And there's been opportunities to start them together. Obviously, Saka's been out injured. Martinelli's been out injured. Jesus has even been out injured. They've all been out injured at various different points. But there has been opportunities for Mikel Arteta to play all three together. for some unknown reason, he's got this fetish about playing Eddie Nketiah up front. Not a massive fan of Eddie Nketiah. I think he works hard. I think he is of a level, but not the level that we require at Arsenal. And unfortunately, while Eddie Nketiah continues to play up front for us and offer us absolutely nothing, because against Spurs he played 100 minutes, didn't do anything in the game. He played majority of the Carabao Cup game as well, majority of the game against Manchester City, and he's offered us absolutely nothing so far. And unfortunately, I think we are due an upgrade in that area, definitely, because Gabby Jesus can't do it all on his own. He's never been a clinical striker anyway, and I just feel like we need a different type of striker, can offer us something different. And we're being linked to the perfect one, in my opinion. Ivan Toney, big fan of that guy. I've been screaming about Arsenal going and getting him for the past 2 to 3 years, because he can do everything that Jesus does in terms of the hold-up play, bringing other players into play. But he's also big, physical. It allows us that element, which I think Mikel Arteta is trying to do with Kai Havertz. We see it against City with Kai Havertz. As soon as Kai Havertz came on, we're playing long and we're trying to create different angles, vary our game a little bit better, because obviously in the first half, everything was all through the midfield. And it was so flooded in the midfield by both teams, because Pep had recognised, we got no Rodri. We could lose the midfield battle here. Brought Foden in, brought Alvarez in, brought Rico Lewis in, and they all want to pick up them central areas. So the midfield area, very, very flooded. And it's difficult to, against a team like Manchester City, it's difficult to, get any fluidity in your game. And we kind of see the difference as soon as Kai Havertz came on, because we could play it long. He's going to win his aerial duels. He's going to, battle with the defenders, which Eddie Nketiah wasn't doing. And, that allowed us to, along with Tomiyasu as well. I don't know what he was doing that far up the pitch, but
I know.
but that allowed us to, do something a little bit different. And in the end, it won us the game, whether it was a deflected goal or not. People will say it was lucky, but we had to change our game. Otherwise, that game was always going to end in a draw. So, I look at Ivan Toney as a player that not can only score goals, but he can do all the hold-up play. He can bring other players into play. He can score different types of goals as well, and of course he's, banned at the moment, but I just see a guy there that would fit perfectly for Arsenal. And I'm not saying you have to start him week in, week out, because obviously, for me, Gabby Jesus is our main number 9. But he's certainly an upgrade on Eddie Nketiah. And I think that's the area where Mikel Arteta really needs to tweak at the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Look, everyone knows that watches this. I do the Arsenal news, and there will be some breaking news on Ivan Toney in the next few weeks. The locomotive has started. Currently the situation is the agents are speaking to Brentford. So Ivan Toney's agents are speaking to Brentford at the moment to see what they're willing to accept. When are they willing to sell? Then the motion will go to Arsenal. I believe Arsenal have actually agreed to deal with Ivan Toney. You can do that. We've done it with Declan Rice ages ago as well. What I would say is the big stumbling block is the EPL rules. Because of Toney's ban, the transfer might have to be delayed later in January. It's a very weird. I need to get some clarification from the EPL on exactly why it's going to take so long, because even if he's banned, I can't see why he can't be transferred. I believe it's the 17th of January is the day that he could sign for Arsenal. But at the moment, Ivan Toney has obviously changed his agents back in summer to CA Stella. They are currently communicating with Brentford. I believe Brentford know that they're going to sell him. I don't think there's going to be an issue. To me, it's the money. Now, for you, Brandon, how much are you seriously willing to spend on Ivan Toney, considering he's 27? He's got 2 years left on his deal. How much would you happily spend on Ivan Toney right now?
It's an interesting one because the market's so inflated that you're seeing players, go for 100 million, 80 million. And really and truly, when you actually look at their market value, when you actually weigh it up and say, if you was a sensible business, what would you actually pay for that player? A lot of these players that have gone for 100 million, 80 million, they're probably back in the day a 30, 40 million pound, 50 million pound player maximum.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's intriguing. I mean, I look at the strikers market, and I think this is where we had an issue in the summer, right? Because if you look at the strikers market, there weren't really a lot going. There wasn't any really like game changers out there that wasn't going to cost you an absolute fortune. Obviously, Arsenal fans will name Victor Osimhen, and he's another player that I'd love to see at Arsenal, but he is going to cost you an absolute fortune to get him here. 150 million was what was being quoted around, and that seems to be the going rate these days. So sometimes you've got to kind of do something a little bit different. Now, I'm not saying Ivan Toney's going to, cost like a really low fee or anything like that, because he will still fetch a decent amount of money. But yeah, I mean, look at Man United, for example. They paid what, £70 million for a guy who scored 10 goals in the Italian league, is it? Like that's what I mean. That's what the market is offering right now. So I look at someone like Ivan Toney. He's got Premier League experience. Yes, he's 27, but you can still get a good 3, 4, maybe 5 years out of him if you're lucky at the top level. I think anywhere between 60 and 75 million pound would be about right, I think, for Ivan Toney in this current market. And like I say, I don't see many other strikers out there that are going to be cheaper, that can do a similar sort of job to Ivan Toney, and that's a big problem right now. So yeah, that's what I would do. I would go Ivan Toney, and I would say, look, 60 to 70 million pound would be our maximum. But I think we need him. If we're serious about winning the league, this is the one issue that I had with Arsenal last season, right? We was in such a great position, and then for me, we didn't do enough in January.
Yeah,
we didn't do enough in January. Obviously we brought in Trossard. I rate Trossard very highly. Jorginho's came in, and he's done better than what I expected. I'll be real, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. I still feel like we were lacking in certain areas as well. And, striker was always an issue really for me because, like I say, Jesus is not clinical. And I know people will go, yeah, but Arsenal's problems wasn't scoring goals last season. But the thing about last season is we shared the goals around the pitch really, really well. You had Martinelli come up with 15. Odegaard came up with 15. Saka, I think he scored about 12. Jesus scored a handful. And Ketia as well. And for me, I don't know how you feel about this one, but it's harder to replicate that than it is to get one person who can score you 20 goals a season and guarantee you that. Because let's just say, for example, right, Odegaard scored 15 goals last season. Let's say he only scores 2 this season, for an example, yeah? And Martinelli only scores 10. And then Saka, who's on fire at the moment, by the way. Saka only scores, I don't know, 8. And then Jesus scores 4 because he gets an injury or something like that. Then all of a sudden you start to look around the team and go, actually, Arsenal are lacking goals. And, the thing about it is having a goal scorer, somebody who can guarantee you goals, it changes your team dynamic altogether. Look at Spurs, right? They finished 8th last season. Harry Kane scored 30 goals for them last season. I checked the stats, right? And if Spurs didn't have Harry Kane's goals last season, they would have finished 15th in the league. 15th. So that's how much of a difference it can make.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
you're spot on, mate. You are spot on. We're going to go into individual players later and goal conversions, which will be interesting for the people that love Eddie and love Gabby, and I think they're brilliant in front of goal. I have compared them up to the best strikers in the world at the moment as well, so it's going to be interesting when we get into that. But guys, I need to get in your comments now. So big up to Luke, my Northampton Town fan. Hope you're having a great day. Oh, you've been on a long weekend at Haven, brilliant stuff in Great Yarmouth about 14 days ago. Hope you had a lovely time, and the weather
nice
was
time,
lovely,
Luke.
mate. Exactly.
I only came back from Haven about 3 weeks ago. Great Yarmouth as well. So I was there, bro. I was there. Have a nice time.
Also, I know that there was 2 comments that were made. For some reason, they've not appeared. So, Tony, big up to you. He was saying big up to myself. Tony is the man that does all the thumbnails for us. And big up to Brandon. But also, have a great holiday, mate. I know you're in Butlins at the moment, so I hope you're having a great time. Temi, you are the other person that your comment did not come up for some reason. It just got deleted. I don't know who deleted it. I think it's YouTube just having a mare. Saying evening. I know you gave the season rating of 7, I think. Please correct me if I was wrong, Temi, but I'm pretty sure that's what you gave the season as a rating so far. Big up to my pod brother, Brenny. Hope you're doing well. Intro song, yeah. Tony's chose very well there, have to be honest. Tony Philbrook, big up to you. Saying evening, Bobby, and the chat. Big up to Gooner forever. Arsenal beat Man City without conceding in a Premier League home since 2012. Also, Arteta scored the winner in that match in the 87th minute. Yes, there's been loads on X about it. It doesn't really impress me that much, if I'm honest. It's just me. I'm just not one of those that are that bothered, if I'm honest. Look, I was impressed with the second half performance, but I'm not one of the... I still feel it's very painful that we've lost to City for that amount of time. It should not have happened. We should not have got into that position, in my opinion. Saliba and Gabriel, we haven't had a partnership like that since Torre and Campbell.
High praise. That's high praise.
That is high praise.
I'll tell you what, though, they were impeccable against Man City. They were absolutely unplayable, Gabriel and Saliba. And I think more so, obviously, they'll talk about Martinelli's goal and that, but I think them two in particular won us that game. Declan Rice in the midfield as well. He was exceptional. He was everywhere. But Saliba and Gabriel, the one threat that Man City are always going to offer you is Erling Haaland. And that guy is an absolute cyborg. He really is. Not so much this season. I believe he's kind of missed more chances than what he's scored. But even so, that he's still sat top of the Premier League in terms of goals scored. I think he scored 7 out of 9 or something like that. So it's not bad stats, from a guy who's supposedly having a poor start to the season. But he was absolutely shut out in that game, and that's credit to them too. Them two were exceptional.
Yeah, 100%. We'll get on to the goal conversion later because you brought up Haaland about his conversion rate. His conversion rate is still better than Mbappe's this season. It's still better than Salah, Mo Salah. He's still better than that for this season. He's the second highest forward with goal conversion. And it might surprise you who is actually first, So we'll get into that later. True Gunner definitely in tune with me. I call Eddie Sonogo. Yeah, look, I'm not the greatest fan of Eddie. I like him as a guy. Great that he's come through the Howe End and had an appearance of Arsenal, but now it's time to see you later for me. That's just me. I know it sounds harsh, but I just don't want him at the club anymore. Trossard and Cassia aren't starters. They're impact players. Yeah, Tony, I know you keep saying about Trossard being an impact player, and I have to agree at the moment. When he starts, he's not performing very well. We'll get into the stats with him as well later, but he's not doing...
I find that interesting though, right? I think some of that's down to the manager.
Okay.
Because if you look in pre-season, Trossard was our best player in pre-season.
He was. Yeah.
He was on fire. And then when we started the season, he was on the bench. And, I kind of look at Mikel Arteta sometimes and I think, what are you doing, my friend? Like, you know, the old saying, I don't know whether you ever coached before. I've coached before, right? But if somebody's performing, play them, you know,
Yes.
give them the confidence that they need to hopefully continue on, you know, with their good performances. Don't, you know, drop somebody if they're on form.
Yeah.
And this is the kind of the situation, like, I have not a major issue, but a small issue. Like, people will say to me about David Raya, right? And I thought, you know, when we signed him, when we brought him in, I thought, you know, brilliant. I think this is definitely an upgrade on, you know, Aaron Ramsdale, although, you know, I do really like Aaron Ramsdale. But when you really look at it, I mean, Ray has kept more clean sheets. He's kept 3 in his opening 4 games for Arsenal in the Premier League. But I don't see much difference between the two, apart from maybe the, you know, the playing out of the back aspect of the game, because I look at it and I think there's not much difference between the two. But then you see Aaron Ramsdale on the bench every single week, can't get back into the team. You know, David Raya is, you know, the number 1 now. But then you see players like Kai Havertz who stink it out every week, continually starting games over and over and over and over again. But then you got someone like Trossard who was killing it in, you know, pre-season, and then he's sat on the bench. Like, some of his decision making for me is just wow. It really is.
Yeah, we got a guy that he might be in the comments tonight. I'm not sure. Luke, he spoke to me about someone. I can't remember what it was last week in WhatsApp, and I said, to be honest, Arteta's man management skills suck really badly. Like that's his worst trait. Is his man management. He's awful for it. The interesting thing you brought up was Raya and Ramsdale. You'll find the stats very interesting on their games that they've played this season, and you'll see why Raya is number 1. At the moment, it might change by January, don't know, but Ramsdale is absolutely fine being number 2. Has no issues with it. He kind of sees that he's made errors. Anaki, who thankfully knows them both very well, who is the goalkeeping coach, thankfully, he's keeping them very chilled. I don't know how long that will last, if I'm honest, because Aaron Ramsdale is going to have desires to be number 1 for England. The only way you can be England number 1 is by playing. You can't be England number 1 unless you're Harry Maguire. Let's get that one out there. Unless you're Harry Maguire, everyone else has to play. Ramsdale's going to have to play. So he's going to have to fight for his place. I don't think he can do it because there's a problem between Raya and Ramsdale when it comes to long passing, which is what Arteta wanted Raya for. Long passing wise, Raya is brilliant. Ramsdale, not so good. However, what I would say is Raya's short passing sucks, which personally is the better one that I need for short passing because we play out from the back. But, you know, it is what it is. But we'll get into the stats for those two as well. Right. Don't think it was Pep tactics. We slowed the game down. It was a very boring game, if I'm overly honest. It was a poor game. The second half, we were better, but City were atrocious. They played like they did against Wolves when they lost 2-1 at the Molineux, to be fair. Raya slowed the game down for us, which suited us better, where if Ramsdale was in goal, he would have played it quickly, and that would have suited Man City even more.
It's an interesting take. It's definitely an interesting take. I mean, goalkeepers, what happens to the 6-second rule? You know, like these goalkeepers seem to take an age on the ball now. And maybe you're right, Gooner forever. Maybe you're right about, you know, the whole aspect of slowing the game down, you know, playing into our hands better than Manchester City. So, I didn't really think about that. Although, you know, I don't want to see him taking time on the ball like he did against Alvarez. Like, that's a bit sticky. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
he looked nervous after that happened. He looked very nervy in the game, almost like the occasion that got to him a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
So, but no, that's an interesting take. I didn't really think of it that way.
No, nor did I, to be honest. I watched the game, and I suppose looking back at it a little bit, you can see that he does slow the game down a little bit. Ramsdale is, I would say he's hot-headed, but he does like just to get the game going. So maybe that's something I need to look at for when we do the end of the season review as well. Tony scores goals, but he takes penalties, says Tony. Tony is a very different type of striker. Very different type of striker. I do like him. He's not the one that I choose personally. There's someone in the Netherlands that I actually want, but I don't think we'll get him. But we were slightly interested, so never know.
That?
But at Jimenez from Feyenoord, 22.
Right, okay,
yeah. He plays with both feet, so he actually suits Arteta's style. So he's multi-talented, basically. But Ivan Toney, I don't know. Look, if I was to get Ivan Toney and another striker in, I'm being greedy here, people. I'm being greedy. I'd be happy with that because Ivan Toney, yes, for a now player, Jimenez for like a season or two in time, playing a few times. I just want Eddie gone. I'm sorry. I just want him gone. There's no disrespect to Eddie. I think it's time over. Tony is not worth more than 50. Yeah, I'm around the 55 million mark personally. Give them Nketiah and 30 million if we must sign him. I wouldn't. Yeah. Napoli want 130 million. They also want Jesus. That's the sticking point with that one. We can do better than Tony, says Chris King. I think we can as well, personally. But look, it is. Get Osherman next season, says Timmy. Big up to Colm. He is my co-host on FTSN. I hear goal scorer and I appear. You are goalkeeper. I would be worrying if you're scoring goals, mate. You're a goalkeeper. Stay in goal. Yes, season 7 out of 10 so far. Thank you, Tim. I had a feeling I do read the comments before we go live, and for some reason yours just didn't appear, so I couldn't show it. Tony Fulbrook, Brandon pre-season aren't Premier matches. He started at least 3 times and has been rubbish. That's not down to Arteta, says Tony. Do you want to reply to that one, mate?
Yeah. Well, I think it is Tony, right? Because a player who's playing at the top level like that, you have to have rhythm. Sometimes it takes players 1 or 2, 3 or 4 games to get into a bit of rhythm. And, I definitely agree with you. I think, Trossard is a better impact player. He does better for Arsenal off the bench. And we've seen the best of Trossard from the bench. But, whether it's pre-season or not, he was the player that stood out. And I just feel like, sometimes the manager doesn't necessarily play players based off of merit. And, I kind of feel like sometimes he needs to, change that a little bit. Play your players based off of merit. Play players based off of what they're doing now, because it's going to affect the team, And the team's the most important thing. Like, that's why I was so pleased as well, right? When he brought in Fabio Vieira.
Yeah.
And, Fabio Vieira wasn't great for Arsenal last season at all by any stretch. But then, when Kai Havertz weren't doing great, we were all, after every game, Kai Havertz was a talking point, because of the £65 million price tag, the wages that he's getting, you're expecting, a lot better. But then on top of that, we know exactly what he did at Chelsea, which wasn't a lot. And we're kind of trying to see where Arteta's going with it. So when it's not working, everybody, questions it and goes, why is Kai Havertz playing? And he took him out of the firing line at the right time, and brought in Fabio Vieira. And Fabio Vieira, of course, come off the bench, had a very good performance. I think that was against Fulham, was it?
Yeah.
When he set up, and he had a very good performance. And then the following week, I was thinking, here we go. Kai Havertz will be back in the team. But Arteta can, continue to play Fabio Vieira. And that's what I like to see, because if you've got a player that's in form, play them, play them. Because they're more likely to give you the better performance, which will help the team. So that's my only thoughts, on the whole Trossard thing. I understand what you're saying about him being a better impact player. But I just think at that period of time, he should have probably maybe started our first couple of games and then, and then kind of see where his performances are at. And if he's, not doing great, of course, bring Martinelli back in and drop him. But, that's the whole point of being at a top club. competition for places, and you play the players that are performing at the time. That's what I think.
Yeah, I agree. Arteta taking the blame for Raya. Pity he didn't do that for Ramsdale, says Tony. Colm, we goalkeepers count differently to everyone else. Yes, you're special, Colm. You're very special. I think Arteta spent too long at City with Pep and spends too much to be like him. I've said this, Tony, on every single watch long. Stop being like Pep. Be Mikel Arteta. Be the Arsenal manager. Stop
I think
being
everyone
like Pep.
wants to be Pep now. Like
But why?
football has generated that kind of, every single manager wants to play out from the back. Every single manager wants to do this ticky-tacky kind of style that Pep has brought to the Premier League. You see De Zerbi doing it at Brighton. Graham Potter was doing it when he was at Brighton. Ten Hag's trying to do it at Man United and failing epically. Spurs are doing it now as well. It's like everybody wants to try and play that style of football, but I don't think you're ever going to beat Pep at his own game. Just try and do your own thing. And do your own thing. And obviously, Pep's style has kind of changed over the years. He used to do this inverted sort of style, what we do here at Arsenal now.
Yeah.
And now he doesn't do that. He plays the full centre backs, and he has a centre back that steps out into midfield, when he's got all his players available and that. And he always continues to kind of, re-evolve his game to keep people guessing. And I just think, like, do your own thing. Do you know what I mean? Do your own thing. I know we want to see pretty football. I know, but all we care about as fans is winning. And that's it. That's why we go to the games. We want the trophies. We want all of that, especially at Arsenal. 20 years since we won a league title. God knows how long since we won a European Cup. And, 3 years since we've actually won a trophy. So, we need to see something now.
100% agree. Tony saying Havertz's best position is striker or right wing. Yeah, I do think we should try him on the right wing. I think we should try him like against Luton or Burnley, because that was his best position at Leverkusen. That's where he got most of his assists, his goals, his best performances at Leverkusen were at the right wing. I think we should at least try it. There's no harm in it. If Arteta wants him, at least try and play him in his best position. Let's hope Arteta doesn't copy the 116 supposing charges. I'm just doing that just to cover myself. Arteta has beaten Pep now. Yes, twice this season, actually, which is nice. Good evening to Cole. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Let ETH alone. He's trying his best. Yes, Cole, he is trying his best, a little egghead. He is. Just to let you know, Brandon, he supports Man United, Colm does. So
that's a shame, Colm. That's a shame, Colm, because you're going to go through a lot of pain this season, I think, especially with Onana in goal. You might do a better job yourself there, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had United fans telling me when they signed Onana, he's the best goalkeeper in the league. You watch this space. He's better than Alisson. He's better than Edison. Man couldn't catch a cold. Do you know what I mean? He couldn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, Ajax are my team in the Eredivisie, and I said to everybody, Onana cannot save. Yes, he's great with his feet, and that's fantastic if you're a midfielder. He's a goalkeeper. Personally, I just don't rate him. I didn't want him when we were linked with him ourselves, when he was going through his charges and stuff. I didn't want him. Not for me. Gooner forever saying 30 years without a European trophy. Yeah, it's painful, mate. Alan Smith. Right, we're going to do some ratings now, people. So this is the season so far. Obviously, 8 games. We're going to give an overall rating of what you think of the performances. So all 8. I'm not going to do it individual games because most of them are going to get probably a 6. Then the City might get a 7. To be honest, I can't think of any really great performances. Obviously, I've done every single watch long of this season so far. So overall, Premier League-wise, what would you give our season a rating out of 10?
It's interesting, really, because we haven't been great in
No.
the majority of the games, but we're still unbeaten and joint top of the league.
Yes.
So it's hard to give it a low rating, even with the performances being not great.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to agree with Temi and say a 7, I think. You
Okay.
know, when you factor everything in, I think a
Yeah.
7 is probably about right, yeah.
I think if we lost a couple, I think we would push it down to a 6. But
Oh, yeah.
it's very hard to low score us when we're unbeaten. Look,
Mhm.
I'm George Graham era. I'm 43. I've watched painful wins at Highbury, where we scraped wins, but it was the famous song 1-0 to the Arsenal was always sang, even though the performance was rubbish. My dad moaned all the way home from Highbury regarding the performance. But me and my brother always says, look, we got 3 points, you know. So yeah, it's
We've,
going to be hard to give us a 6. But I
yeah, I
think
mean, we've definitely had the rub of the green. Like, look at that first game, Arsenal, Nottingham Forest. If that game had gone for another 10 minutes, the way, the way we was getting ripped down the left-hand side by Elanga,
yeah,
maybe that ends in a draw. The Crystal Palace one, lucky penalty, really.
yeah,
Thomas Partey on another day, that doesn't get given. The Fulham game, like just lapses in concentration by Arsenal. We see it again last season, conceding early goals or sloppy early goals as well. Mistakes happening first minute, and then you got to try and come back from that. And yeah, it was just 2 sloppy goals to concede. I think one of them was from a corner as well, weren't it? Man United, again, and Nat's cock, it made the difference there. Do you know what I mean? Like, if, yeah, Nat's cock offside, Garnacho was. So, that's the difference between us winning the game and losing the game. Obviously, we had to score the 2 late goals, but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think if, that ends up being a goal, I don't think we win that game. Everton, I think we had an okay performance against Everton. Struggled to break them down, but it was probably one of our better performances. Spurs, again, I think looking at it, obviously we had injuries to Rice. We had players going off in that game. Not great. Saka went off injured in the end as well. I think maybe if they'd kept Son on the pitch,
Yeah.
maybe we'd be looking at a different story. But when you break it down, like first half performance in that game, I thought we fully deserved to go in front, and we could have, been a few more goals ahead as well, and then we just kind of stupidly let them back into the game. So, yeah, I mean, them first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games that I've spoke about, a lot of them has been like our own doing. It's been our own stupid fault for conceding
Yeah.
goals and making silly little errors. And then, of course, Bournemouth, I expect Arsenal to beat Bournemouth every year because I don't believe they've actually won a game in the Premier League so far, have they?
I
Bournemouth.
don't think so. They've been awful.
Yeah, they've been absolutely awful. And we beat them at their ground every single year anyway. So, you kind of expect that. And then, the Man City one is the one where you go, okay, maybe this team isn't performing great, but we've got a bit of personality about us now. We've got a bit of, we won't lay down and just die now. Like we will keep fighting and we'll keep going until the end.
Yeah.
And that game in particular, I see a lot of players. And the best thing about that game, right, the Man City game, concentration. Every single player for Arsenal, there wasn't a single time where I thought, oh, this is a little bit like, oh, Jorginho's out of position or somebody else is out of position. Every single player was spot on in that game. Absolutely spot on in terms of their concentration levels, their positioning, everything. And going into that game, I ain't gonna lie, I was really worried about Doku. He's raw, he's pacey, he's powerful. And I thought, oh, geez, Zinchenko inverting into midfield, getting caught out on that left-hand side. Oh, that could be crazy. But Zinchenko had a really good game defensively. And, it surprised me. And that, I think what was most impressive about the City game was it was a team performance. It wasn't a great performance individually, but it was a team performance, and that's what ends up being the difference sometimes. So, yeah, I think 7 out of 10 is probably about right.
No, fair enough, mate. Right, let's quickly get into some comments. Mr. Papa Dom Hands, I have a bet United will let in over 80 goals this season. Cole, what is it with you and these bets on these crazy bets?
That's not a bad bet, I mean,
I know.
with Onana in goal and Harry Maguire and Evans as your centre backs, I'd be putting a bet on that as well.
Tony said season so far 6. Arteta gets a 5 from Tony. Signings 9 out of 10, gameplay 7 out of 10 because we dropped points at home to errors, Fulham, and I'll reword that, Tottenham. Thank you, Temi. 4 because Spurs are top of the league, says Cole. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have to show you the league in a minute. What happened to the days of playing best team and changing just for injuries? I was always loving the days where I knew we had a very good squad. I used to go to Highbury, didn't know the starting lineup until I got there. Excited whichever player was playing, so I was excited anyway. I think that's where we nearly are. We've got a good enough squad there. There's enough rotation to. There's not. I'm gonna rephrase what I've just said because I've just realised there's 2 positions there. I don't think we've got enough rotation. We've nearly got enough rotation in our squad where I think, okay, if such and such is playing on the left, I'm happy with that. If such and such is playing in midfield, I'm happy with that. There's still 2 positions for me that are slightly concerning, if I'm honest. But we're getting there. Rice has always been an elite ball winner, but at Arsenal, he's done so much more. Yeah, by far. Timber was Mike's most excited signing. I was very excited to see him, and obviously, sadly, he got injured. But Rice has definitely impressed me as well. Temiola, Tottenham. When did you play? Yeah, I think a lot of people have different versions of that word. That's why I wanted to say Tottenham, because I know a lot of people call different teams that word. So I wanted to be exact, and there we go. Right, let's unfortunately have a look at the league. Look, we're in second. That's the positive. Unfortunately, the stupid neighbours are top. Look, I can't see it happening for the whole season that they're on top, but they are on top at the moment. City are in 3rd, and because there we go, Liverpool are in 4th, and Aston Villa are in 5th. So that's the top 5. Colm, what I would say is I didn't have a big enough league to put Man United on it. They're so far down, mate. No, seriously. I only wanted to do top 5, to be fair. So, right, let's go on to the Carabao. I know it's only one game, but it was a performance that some people were happy with, some people were very disappointed with. I want to get Brandon's view on it. That performance against Brentford.
Yeah, kind of showed the lack of quality that we've got in our squad depth. Yeah. Reece Nelson obviously scored the goal, had an opportunity to maybe have another as well. But again, you're kind of looking on it and thinking on another day, we lose that game because Brentford had so many opportunities. And they just didn't take them, And, you look at the likes of Reece Nelson. I didn't want him to get a new contract in the summer.
Okay.
Because I always knew that it would be a situation like it is now. You're looking at Bukayo Saka's out injured. Came up, well, even before he was injured, he came off in 2 games previous to that, injured. And clearly, although we've given him a new contract, I call it a cost-cutting exercise by Arsenal. To give Reece Nelson a new contract was a cost-cutting exercise. It's easier to give him, a 5-year contract, 100 grand a week, than it is to go out and spend a further 50, 60 million pound on, actual competition for Bukayo Saka. So I always thought it was a cost-cutting exercise, and I've been proven right that it is a cost-cutting exercise because, as we see, Saka being injured, going off 3 games in a row injured. Clearly, the manager doesn't trust in Reece Nelson enough to rest Bukayo Saka, you know, and that's kind of where, you know, I look at it and I think, you know, did the manager make the right decision in terms of playing Saka for Lons? Probably. You know, it's a Champions League game, whether it's Lons or not, you know, it's a Champions League game. But it's the game before that I think Saka should have been resting. It sounds stupid, right? Because Saka scored in that game against Bournemouth. But, you know, when he limped off against Tottenham, you just kind of think this guy needs a rest. 87 consecutive games for Arsenal, 83 starts. You know, it's always going to be inevitable and happen at some point. And I just think, you know, the manager needs to protect him a little bit better.
Yeah.
And you look at your bench and you go, cool, we got Reece Nelson. You've just given him $100,000 a week contract. You know, are we going to see him play then? And like I say, the manager clearly doesn't trust him enough. Otherwise, he would be playing.
Yeah. What I do know about the Reece Nelson situation is we don't want to let anyone go for free anymore, which I agree with. I don't think we should let anyone go. He is valuable in terms of about 15 million quid. I don't think he's going to make it. I didn't think he was going to make it last season. Yes, he had some great games sometimes, but it's the word sometimes. It's not good enough for Arsenal. We need people that play consistently well. But yeah, Reece Nelson, his contract is very similar to Eddie's, where the base value is around £65,000. I know everyone likes to pump out the 100,000, but that's with the add-ons. That's the problem with Eddie and Reece. I very much be surprised if Eddie and Reece have ever got the £100,000 a week yet, because they haven't performed very well. Eddie might have got nearly 100,000 once or twice this season, but that's about it. I'm not too concerned long term, but Arsenal do not want to let anyone go that are valuable. And Reece Nelson, 15 million doesn't seem a lot, but it's 15 million we can actually get that we can reinvest. Obviously, we want to be self-sustainable, not next summer, but the summer after. We want to be self-sustainable again, so we need to make sure we don't let these players go. I don't know if you've heard the story about Thomas Partey. If Thomas Partey does not agree a new deal with Arsenal, we will sell him in January. That is the basis of what's going to happen with Thomas Partey. Thomas Partey wants a bigger contract. I personally don't think he deserves it at that age, and with his injury record, he doesn't deserve a bigger contract. If anything, you should be getting a reduction at that age. No offense, but that's how it works in every other club. You get a reduction when you get to a certain age. And that's what should be happening with Thomas Partey. I've personally, if he doesn't sign a new deal, sell him, because we can't let him go for pittance. You know, we've spent a lot of money on him, and it was a lot of money all in one. So it's not like someone we've been able to pay over the years. That doesn't really hurt us. It was literally that amount of money that day to release that contract. That is a lot of money in one day. But yeah, that's the Thomas Partey situation, and obviously the Reece Nelson situation. So what did you give it a rating, Brandon? The Carabao one
for the Carabao Cup.
Yeah. Sorry, mate. I like writing all the stuff down.
Maybe a 5 because we went through, but again, not a great performance.
Yeah, I'll be surprised if we knock West Ham out. If I'm honest, with that performance, I'll be surprised. Standout players so far for Tammy is Saliba and Rice. So if Tottenham don't win the league, now they have pulled it. Oh, I like what you're doing there, Tony. Worst players so far, Eddie and Havertz, says Tammy. Brentford, George Graham performance, get in front and don't concede. Yeah, but that second half performance, well, we were so. If they had Ivan Toney that day, we ain't winning that game. You all laugh now, but mark my words, by the end of the season, you'll be laughing even more when we finish 16th, says Cole. I don't think you'll be laughing, mate. You'll be crying. You'll be on stream with me, just crying. Well, Nelson is worth more than Mudryk, so 90. Definitely not. Definitely not. No. Nelson's, look, he's a decent player. I think Smith Rowe's better than him, and there's a chance that Smith Rowe goes in January. So, yeah, it's one of those. Nelson is in the same category for me as Eddie. It's nice to have seen you, but now please leave. Or is it please leave the Big Brother house? It's definitely their time now. But Champions League rating, please, mate.
Yeah, so we started off really well. Absolute battering against PSV. And when you look at our group, I actually think PSV was, on paper, our hardest game. They caused us a lot of problems in the Europa League. And I was quite worried about that game. But, when we're going 3-0 up at half time and we're absolutely destroying them, I thought, yeah, this is the Arsenal of last season. We're going to kick on now. We're going to kick on. How wrong was I? Because obviously the following game against Lons, weren't great. Weren't great at all. The goal that we scored with Jesus was kind of, I wouldn't say lucky, but against the run of play, Saka, they lose the goal, they lose the ball, defensive mistake. And then, of course, we go and do the same thing with David Raya. And to be fair, I'm going to give Lons a bit of credit here because they were actually a better organised team than I expect them to be. I thought on that day in that game, I thought their manager organised them really, really well, and they knew exactly what kind of game plan they was coming with. They was gonna, sit deep, try and hit us on the counter. They know that Arsenal struggle in terms of trying to break down two banks of four, and that worked to their advantage. And I think they've got some fairly decent players in there, but even so, we should be going to France and beating Lons, and that was very disappointing. So I'm gonna have to go straight down the middle again, mate, and say 5. Far.
Fair enough, mate. I'll get onto the cold comment that made me nearly spit out my drink. PSV 10, Lons 5 was that another rare mistake. Colm, this one tickled me, mate. I'm sorry, but it did. If Maguire is 80 million, then surely Nelson's is 500 million plus. That's what made me nearly spit out my drink. I was like, jeez. Yes, in fairness, yes, I agree. Where your mindset is, yes, I totally agree. But yeah, not happening. Right, let's move on to actual player ratings now. Right, so these are our two goalkeepers. Now, as I said, these stats will be interesting to people. So it's 4 clean sheets for Raya, 2 for Ramsdale. Passing accuracy doesn't surprise me. Raya is very far ahead of Ramsdale in passing accuracy. Saves per game, however, Ramsdale is better than Raya. Now, the goals prevented. Now, if you're in a plus, that means you've actually prevented a goal. If you're in the minus, you've actually cost us a goal. I think last season's the winner was, now I might be wrong, but I think it was Bernd Leno that was the best goalkeeper on plus 10. So that's the kind of ratings you're looking at. So Ramsdale's actually cost us more than Raya has, amazingly. From what I do a lot of the watch-alongs, it was shocked me that these were the stats. But you kind of see, with the passing accuracy, you kind of see why Arteta's going Raya, can't you, really? Because that's, we're playing from out the back. Accuracy has to be impeccable. Ramsdale's, it just isn't. 64%. It surprised me it was that low. Now, this is every game that he's performed in. It's not just one game. This is every game he's performed in. It's the average. So it's 64% for Aaron and 80 for David. Now, Brandon, this is going to be tricky because I know you did a show with Lee regarding this. Now, I want your rating first for Ramsdale.
That's really tough. I mean, I still go back to pre-season when Bruno Fernandes scored that goal that he should never have scored. And I kind of look at Ramsdale in that department. I think, in terms of his shot stopping, he does concede a lot of goals that he should be really saving.
Yeah.
I think you're right about his long passing as well. Well, the stats are there to back it up, but
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of looked at Ramsdale when he first came in at Arsenal, because he was such an improvement in that department over Bernd Leno. It was like, wow. And then you see, now with David Raya and his passing accuracy, especially long passing. Yeah. I mean, you have to say, I don't know how many goals we've conceded in the first 4 games that Ramsdale played. It was 2 against Fulham, 1 against Forest. So, yeah, I mean, Ramsdale, you're probably going to have to give him, it's harsh, I'm going to say a 4.
Okay. Now moving on to David.
It's difficult to rate these, do you know? It really is difficult to rate these.
I know.
I think coming in, like I say, you see the difference in terms of the distribution. But in all honesty, I don't see a great deal between the two. Obviously, he made that great save against Spurs, so that'll give him a higher rating. But I do also think that he flaps it quite a lot, David Raya. And I think the difference here as well, in terms of the Ramsdale-Raya debate, is you've got to remember the first 2 games of the season, Ramsdale was playing with Thomas Partey at right back.
Yeah, true.
It wasn't our standard settled back 4, of Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Zinchenko. So it's really hard to judge because, we didn't even have Gabriel in the team at that time either. We was playing Ben White centre back, Saliba centre back. Zinchenko wasn't playing. We had who was playing because he was out injured. I can't remember now. Was it Tomiyasu? So completely different back line for each goalkeeper. For now, I'm going to say David Raya a 6.
Okay. Now, just to compare these with what I arguably would say the 4 best goalkeepers in the world at the moment, which is Alisson from Liverpool, Ederson, City, Oblak, and ter Stegen. Now, their saves per game, the highest one is on 78 saves, 78% saves per game, and that's Alisson. Now, Ederson is on 65. So he's not the greatest shot stopper in the world, which I've always said. I think he gets away with it because his defense is impeccable. But also the passing accuracy. Now, I think it was Tony that asked me about passing accuracy. Now, it's important because ter Stegen, who plays for Barca, 93%. Alisson, 81. Ederson, 81. Oblak is actually down on 73. So he's not having the greatest. And also the goals prevented. Now, funny enough, David Raya is the best one out of all 6 goalkeepers that I've looked at the stats, which is weird because Alisson is on 0.25. ter Stegen is on minus 0.3. Oblak is on minus 1.36. And Ederson is on 0.82. So David Rowe is actually the best goalkeeper out of all those 6 with goals prevented. That is a stat. So it's like the XG. I don't like XG and I don't like this one, but this is an interesting stat that I thought I'd use for the goalkeepers. But yeah, I just wanted to put a little bit of perspective on it. They are the best goalkeepers, in my opinion, in the world at the moment. And on eye test, Raya hasn't been better than Ramsdale. Shot stopping, it kind of says that on there. With saves per game, Ramsdale is better shot stopper than what Raya is. And I think that's what I look at for a goalkeeper, is someone that can actually save a goal. I'm not bothered about passing accuracy. That doesn't really interest me. I used to see Seaman just literally just throw the ball out or roll it out. I'm not that bothered, but it's the system that Arteta likes to play. So it is important for him. For me, save the damn goal. That's what the goalkeeper's job is for me. And that's what Onana can't do at United. That's why the fans are going mental. And they all wanted De Gea out, but there we go. Ramsdale also got us our only trophy so far, Community Shield, so 7 out of 10 for Temi. So let me get this right. So as Raya can allegedly pass better, let's forget his mistakes. Raya saved him Sunday by clearing off the line. If you look at that, look, what I've suggested here is saves per game, which for me is the most important stat on this. Can they save more than they let in? Raya is not as good as Ramsdale at it. That's how I look at it. And Ramsdale's on the same percentage as Alisson for Liverpool. So that'll do me. I'm quite happy with those stats, if I'm honest, with saves per game. I find it very hard because there's no better goalkeeper out there that we can actually physically get. That's the problem. I don't know how well you know European football, Brandon, but what other goalkeeper out in the world do you think we could actually get that improves our goalkeeping right now?
I don't really think there is one.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think there is one. I think it's hard to distinguish between these two, though, because they both have great attributes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's annoying, really, because you think Aaron Ramsdale would be the perfect goalkeeper for Arsenal if he had David Raya's distribution.
Yes.
And then you look at David Raya and you go, he would be the perfect goalkeeper for Arsenal if he could shot stop as well as Aaron Ramsdale.
100%.
And it's like you just need to mix the two together. Do you know what I mean? But I think they're both top goalkeepers. They're both top goalkeepers, and it's very rare that you see a team that has two top goalkeepers like we do. And I'm comfortable with either one of them in goal, to be honest with you. I never really looked at Ramsdale as we need a major improvement on him or we need a new number one.
Yeah.
Clearly Arteta felt differently about it, and we're just going to have to wait and see where it takes us this season. But yeah, I look at it and I think, if we can keep both of these at Arsenal, I'm quite happy. I'm quite happy.
Fair enough. I couldn't give a toss about accurate passing, long passing, etc. Shot stopping is the most important aspect of goalkeeping. And this is from Colm, who is actually a goalkeeper, who actually coaches goalkeepers. So I will definitely listen to you, Colm. It's how I look at it as well. For me, I played right back. I want my goalkeeper to save shots. I don't care if he can pass to me or not. I can, if he slightly mishits it, I can go running after the ball. It's not a problem. That's my job. So anyway, not all of us want. Yeah, I know you didn't want De Gea out. I know you didn't, but most of your fan base certainly did, and I think you're regretting it now. Bobby already had one, and that's Ramsdale. If Turner had been okay playing second fiddle, we wouldn't have signed Raya. Yeah, Turner wasn't happy playing second fiddle, and his distribution was atrocious. If I'm honest. So again, look, this is where I do have an issue with Anarchy, and Anarchy is the man that wanted Raya. He's the man that wanted Ramsdale, but he also was the man that wanted Runnison. Now, Runnison will be talked about tomorrow in my loaned out show. The less said about him, the better. But Anarchy
loaned out. Is he still at the club?
Yeah, he's at Cardiff. He's only played 3 games for them. Yeah, he's only played 3 games for them.
Jesus Christ. I didn't realise he was still on Arsenal's books.
Yeah, he's still on our books. Just, it's just not nice. Anyway, let's move on to our right backs. And I have put Tommy in here. I know he can play versatile left and all that stuff, but I have to be fair. He is mainly our backup right back. So this is Benjamin White and Tommy Asu. They are their stats for people that give a monkeys. I've just put it in there because it's interesting. Passing accuracy is the main part of our game, so it has to be impeccable. You will notice later how bad someone's passing is that should be better considering where he plays. We'll get on to him shortly. Right, let's rate Ben White, please, Brandon.
Oh, I think he's done very well so far this season.
Mhm.
I think he's a player that goes reasonably unnoticed as well.
Yeah.
Because people look at Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko, they forget about Ben White and the job that he does at right back.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with a 7, I think.
Okay. What about Tommy?
I think, yeah, Tomiyasu gets a 7 as well for me, because although he hasn't played too many games or started too many games, played too many 90 minutes, I do think he makes a very good impact off the bench every
Yeah.
single time he, comes on. He does a job. So, yeah, I think 7 for both is fair.
No, I agree, mate. Tommy is so versatile. It's actually very helpful having him at the club. That is someone else that we really need to tie down. He's only got less than 2 years on his deal as well at Arsenal, so we need to. He is the most important person to try and keep because he's so versatile. So versatile. It's really helpful. It's like literally having 3 positions in one, which would cost you what £75 million to buy 3 different players at 25 million. So technically he's like a £75 million signing. Tony saying White 8, Tommy 7, 100%. Tony agree. Ben White has been fantastic. Not big on Sudoku. Already makes him 9 out of 10 for me. Yeah, look, I have my issues with Ben regarding the way his mentality is. However, I know it does not affect his performances. That's what doesn't bother me. I prefer players to love football, live and breathe it, but I'm getting used to the fact that Ben doesn't care. He plays his game, gets paid, does his training, goes home. Don't know what he does at home. Probably cooks or does anything other than football. I'm getting used to it now. At the start, because I've always been brought up in football world, you live and breathe it. But Ben is starting to rub off on me like, I can do my job. I do it very well. Once I've clocked off, I'm not talking about football. Don't want to even speak about it. Don't even want to watch it. Fair dues. As long as your performances are great on the pitch, do that. Do whatever makes you happy, mate. At the beginning, I have to be honest, that was an issue for me. I'm cool with it now because his performances have been impeccable. I loved him at Leeds because I used to watch him before because I watched a lot of Championship football. I loved him at Leeds. Absolutely brilliant player there. I was a bit and ahhing when we signed him for 50. Definitely not a centre-back. Not on your Nelly. Is he a centre-back? He's a right-back. Very good right-back. Just not a centre-back. I will state that until he's retired. He's not a centre-back. His positioning is always so wrong as a centre-back. He's just a very good right-back, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy to pay 50 million for a right back. Not an issue. Not an issue for me. Right, let's move on to Zinny and Saliba. We'll start with Zinny first because obviously left back.
Yeah. I mean, he's been out for a few games, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I think 6. I think 6 is probably about right.
Yeah, well, to be fair, you can probably just see above, well, just underneath his name, his overall rating for the whole season is 6.64. So, the stats machine that I use, stating the same that I say, he's okay. Defensively, he needs to improve a lot.
Oh, massively. He needs to stop putting political statements out as well.
Yeah. The less said about that, the better. Yeah, exactly. Just stick with your football, mate. Leave the political stuff for your personal life. Tony's saying Zinnia 6. Temi also saying Zinnia 6 as well. We're all spot on at the moment. Saliba.
Saliba. 9.
Okay.
9. He's absolute quality for me. And he's slowly becoming one of the I don't want to say one of the best because I think he's already there,
Okay.
but I think he's establishing himself as one of the best defenders in world football.
Mm. Yeah.
And the fact that he's at Arsenal, we haven't had a centre back
No.
who's as calm as what he is, who can defend as well as what he can, since maybe Sol Campbell.
Yeah.
And
No, I'm all right.
his passing's brilliant as well. He's so calm, and collected. The way he bodied Haaland as well at the weekend, absolutely bodied him. And I'm just like, I like this guy. I like this guy a lot. He's very good, very, very good.
Yeah,
And
he
people
is.
will compare him with Van Dijk. I think he's of similar level to a peak Van Dijk at
Yes,
Liverpool.
I agree. Yes, 100% agree on that one. Van Dijk is definitely on the decline now, thankfully. Tony's agreeing with you with the Saliba of a 9. Temmie's giving Saliba a 10, and he's explained why. Saliba hasn't put a foot wrong this season. Bodied, babied, and owned Haaland twice. 10 out of 10. What I would say about Saliba, look, he does put a foot wrong, but when he puts a foot wrong, he then sorts out his own problem. And that's what I like about him. Yeah. It's why I put the ball recovered there. 5.9 is ridiculous for a centre back. Now I've done some comparisons again with other defenders. Now this includes Ruben Diaz, Van Dijk, Rudiger, and Alaba. Saliba is the best out of all 5 of those players. Van Dijk is the next one down on 4.8 recoveries. And I guarantee they're all Van Dijk's errors as well, if I'm honest. Diaz is on 2.6 per game. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. Saliba is just amazing. I absolutely love him. He could be one of those players that when he's retired, I have this rule, Brandon, just so you know, I won't get anybody's name on my back. My granddad always taught me that players can hurt you. So don't get your players until they're retired. So the only 2 players I've ever got on my shirt is Lee Dixon and Bergkamp. Saliba might be one of those. Once he retires...
I know that feeling. Feeling because I have had Henri, I've had Bergkamp on my back. And the one that I'll remember forever and ever is I got Samir Nasri put on my shirt. And then he went and joined Manchester City in that same transfer window. And I was fuming.
Yeah, I can imagine, mate. Yeah, I can imagine. Martinelli is the only other player other than Saliba that just excites me being at Arsenal. I don't know how long Saliba and Martinelli will be at Arsenal. I hope for the rest of their careers. But my granddad always taught me that players leave and they will hurt you. Let them retire, then get their names done because you can remember the good times, not the bad times. Look, I don't know what happened with Saliba. Will he stay at Arsenal forever? Not sure. If I'm honest, I'm not sure. It depends how well Arsenal do.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be too long before teams like Real Madrid are knocking on the door, to be honest with you. So,
exactly.
Yeah, it does depend heavily on what we do. I think if we're successful, then, Saliba might stay. But, it's hard to turn down Real Madrid.
It is, yeah. It definitely is. Right, let's move on to the next 2 players. And the next 2 is Gabriel and Kivior.
I think Gabriel... I mean, we give a lot of praise to Saliba, but I think Gabriel has been just as good as Saliba this season.
Yep.
And I'm going to give Gabriel a 9 as well.
No, that's fair enough. Now, I know Kivior is a little bit trickier because he's hardly played.
Yeah, see, Kivior... I don't really know. 6.
Okay. No, mate. There's like I said before we went online. This is your opinion. There's nothing wrong with your answers at all, and I totally get with the 6 as well because he's hardly played. But like, if you look at the stats there, this is not making you change your decision. The ball recoveries that he does do for when he does come on is impressive. His passing accuracy is ridiculous as well. 90% is ridiculous. But if you look at Gabriel, his ball recovery is 4.5. It's up there with the best in the world. It's ridiculous. I love him. I actually do love Gabby. Kivior, I don't think he's got a long-term future with Arsenal. I don't think it's worked out as well as we hoped. Do I see him? I can see him. I can see us selling him next season. I think, I just see us selling him. I don't know why. We didn't pay a lot, thankfully, as well. So, but I think we'll make a profit on him. But I just don't think it's going to work out. And it's nothing to do with him. I just I just don't think he's the type of player that Arteta thought we were getting, if that makes sense. He's not a bad player. I just don't think he's as adaptable as what Arteta first thought. He does all right on the left, but he's no left back. And if you're going to play out on the left, you kind of need to be able to run forward and run backwards comfortably. And I just don't think he can do it as well as Arteta expected. But yeah, 6 is fine for that, if I'm honest. Gabriel, wait for it. A 10, says Tony. Kivior, 7. Big Gabby gets a 10 for that move. That's just cut that joke. Kivior gets a 7 because he hasn't got enough game time. Yeah, there's a couple of players that I haven't included, which I believe is El Neni and obviously Timber. That's not included because they haven't played over 90 minutes. That was my cutoff. If they haven't played 90 minutes for Arsenal, they're not getting rated. It's not fair. So let's move on to the next two, Jorginho and Thomas Partey.
Hard to rate them as well because they've both barely played, barely featured. Obviously, Partey being out injured. Jorginho. I thought Jorginho actually did okay against Man City. I thought he did reasonably well. The thing that really highlights Jorginho, though, for me, is that mistake against Tottenham. So he's going to have to get marked down for that. I would have given him a 7, but I'm going to give him a 6.
Okay.
Thomas Partey. I think you give him the same as well. Thomas Partey is 6.
No, fair enough.
Featured, yeah.
Right, Brandon's just let me know he needs to go in about 10 minutes, so I'm going to get through the comments after, so Brandon can get his scores in, so I can jot them down, and we'll try and get through the scores as quick as we possibly can. Right, Declan Rice.
That guy. I'd put an argument out there that he's been signing of the season so far. Obviously right. People will talk about Maddison, and I think it's right that Maddison's in that conversation as well because he's done very well over there. But yeah, Declan Rice coming in with all the pressure of the £105 million price tag, and he's just took to it like a duck to water. It's like he belongs here at Arsenal, and he's been excellent. I'm going to give him a 9 as well.
Awesome stuff. Right, let's try and get through these as quick as we can. Odegaard and Havertz.
Ooh. Odegaard, I'm going to give a 6. He goes missing in too many big games for me, in too many big moments. Kind of reminds me of Mesut Ozil in a way. Very, very reminiscent. And I've got a friend who calls him Solarguard. Yeah. And the reason why he calls him Solarguard is because he only comes out when the sun's nice hot sunny days, you know what I mean? So, yeah. Odegaard, I'm going to give a 6 because for me, he goes missing too often. Yeah. But yeah. I mean, if it was based off of last season, well, he was very good last season, but yeah, not so much so far this season. Kai Havertz. Five, maybe.
No, there's nothing. Like I said, I will when Brandon's got. Oh, go on, mate.
I want to say 4.
You can do.
I'm,
It's
yeah,
your
I'm
ratings,
gonna
mate.
I'm gonna say 4, right? I'm gonna say 4 because again, I look at him and he goes missing an awful lot in that midfield, an awful lot. Sometimes I see him hiding. Doesn't really offer anything to the team in that area of the pitch. He really doesn't. I really don't know what Mikel Arteta is seeing. Not all his fault, not all Kai Havertz's fault, not all.
No.
But yeah, for me, he's not been great at all.
No, it's fair enough, mate. It's your ratings. Once Brandon's gone, I will come back to the Odegaard situation because I do want to talk about his stats. Smith Rowe and Fabio. I know this is going to be quick, pretty hard, but try your best, mate.
Yeah, Fabio Vieira. I'm actually going to give Fabio Vieira a 7 because I think at times when he's come off the bench, I think he's actually done really, really well, and that's a strong 7 as well.
Yeah.
Smith Rowe, difficult to rate. Again, he's a player that hasn't played many minutes. I probably just have to give him a standard 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough, mate. Let's move on to Saka and then Nelson.
Yeah. Saka's a weird one for me because when I watch him and his overall game, I don't think he's been that great this season. But when you look at his goals, his assists, he's got 10 goals and assists in 10 games. So, he's clearly performing and better at a better level than what the eyes tell you. So I'm gonna go with an 8 for Saka, and that's only really and truly because although the stats would tell you maybe his rating should be higher, I just think there's still levels that he could go.
Yeah.
And we see, it last season. He has levels to go, and I don't think he's reaching that level just yet because he's played so many games and he's obviously carrying a bit of an injury. So
Yeah.
I think 8 for Saka is fair.
Yep.
Reece Nelson, again, a player who hasn't had much time. Obviously played the Carabao Cup game, and I don't think he was fantastic in that. He scored the goal, missed an opportunity. Again, is it really his fault? It's hard to get fluidity when you don't play regularly. And I'm going to have to give him a 5 as well, I think.
No, that's fine, mate. Right, Martinelli and Trossard.
Trossard, I'm going to give a 6.
Okay.
Because he scored the goal against Everton that won us the game.
Yeah.
And I think he scored in one of the games previous to that as well. Can't remember what game it was now. But apart from that, like his last 2 performances have been really poor. Really, really poor. So I think 6 is probably about right for Trossard. Martinelli, I love that kid. He's brilliant. He reminds you of an old-fashioned winger. Electric, wants to take his man on all the time, causes problems. Defenders are frightened of him. Unfortunately, like I say, he's been out injured as well. I'm going to give Martinelli a 7, I think.
Okay, no worries. Jesus and Nketiah.
Jesus, I like his overall game, but again, for me, he just doesn't score enough goals. He's not a clinical striker. I'm going to give him a 6, I think.
Okay. And then Eddie.
What did I give Kai Havertz? Was it a 4?
Yeah, you gave him a 4.
I think I'm going to have to give Eddie the same.
No worries. Quick before we get on to Mikel, goal conversion, because everyone's saying Eddie is better in front of goal. 11%. Jesus is on 18. So for people that say that Eddie's better in front of goal, he's not. Not this season anyway. He might have been that last season, but definitely not this season. And I know this one's going to be important for you, Brandon, before you log out. Mikel, rating for him this season.
Six.
No, it's
I think that's fair.
Yeah, that is. For me, it is anyway. Guys, in the comments, I will come back to some of these slides, but I just want Brandon to go because he's a parent like me, so I know how go quickly.
I've got three of them as well.
Yeah,
3 of them.
Well, I've got one, and he's enough. Right, where can people find you, mate?
Yeah, True Gunners TV. Make sure you come over and subscribe. There's plenty of Arsenal content coming out once the international break's over. Snooze fest, you know.
Cheers, mate, for coming on, though. Really appreciate
No
it.
worries.
But yeah, definitely have to talk to you about coming on again. Because to be honest, we both chatted before we went on stream, and we were a bit like, oh, not sure how this is going to go. But look, your mindset is very much like mine. You've seen the season exactly how I have. So, you know, despite what people might want to say about a certain part of the Arsenal fan base, I've had a very enjoyable conversation with you, and your ratings are very fair, in my opinion. So thank you ever so much for coming on, Brandon. And we'll definitely try and get you on again at some point. But thank you, mate. And enjoy the rest of your evening, mate. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thank you for having me. Cheers, guys.
No worries, mate. Cheers. See you later. Right. Let's get back into some of these stats because I do want to talk about them a little bit more detail, especially Mr. Odegaard. Because Mr. Odegaard, look, Brandon, for me, was right to give him a 6. 6 or 7 is where I'm around. And the reason is his passing accuracy this season, and it's clear as day there, is 84%. Now, he's our captain. He's our main man in the middle. That's not good enough. It needs to be above 85 for a midfielder like him. His goals and assists, decent enough. You know, ball recovery, decent enough. Chances created, decent enough. But he's just, he has gone missing in certainly the games that we needed him. Tottenham game, poor performance second half. Where was he? RC Long, nowhere at all. It was absolutely awful. But yeah, so they are the stats that I want to talk about. Guys, I'm going to get into your comments now before I wrap it up and tell you where you'll see me next. Let's have a quick look. Where do we get to? Okay. Standard 6 for Jorginho and Partey for Temi. Thank you very much. Tony says Jorginho 7, Partey a 4. Declan Rice is 11 out of 10. Revelation. Mate, I'll take 11. I don't mind that. Tony says Rice baby 10. Odegaard 7. Havertz gets a 7 as well from Temi. Odegaard 6. Havertz 7. Standard 6 for Smith Rowe. Not many games. Fabio gets a 7 from Temi. ESR and Vieira both get a 6 from Tony. Tony says Saka an 8. Nelson a 5. Temi, Saka 8. Scary to think he's not in form. Nelson gets a 6 from Temi. Martinelli 7. Trossard 4 from Tony. And then he gets a 7. Trossard gets a 6. Jesus gets a 7 for me. Sanogo gets a 5. Tony says Jesus gets an 8. Nketiah gets a 5. Arteta a 5. The Cone Man, as he's called on Curtis Shaw TV, gets a 7. He's managed well so far. Got the win over City, but could do better. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Brandon was absolutely brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Brandon. Really appreciate your company. Bobby, I do worry we seem to have issues when players get wage rises. I get what you're saying there. Yeah, this is why I don't want Thomas Partey getting a pay rise, because he hasn't deserved it. And he's of a certain age where that is the top whack that he should be getting. From now on, it should be a reduction. Jorginho took a reduction to come to us. That is right. You know, you get to a certain point, your wages should start coming down. Your highest should be around when you're 27, like in your peak. peak of your career, that is when you should get the highest, not when you're in your 30s. That's when the money should start going down. Guys, that is it. Thank you very much for Brandon for coming on. Brandon's got kids, so I get that he has to go. I will be back in the morning. I've got the Lone Rangers show, which is updates on all our loan players out. It's not pretty sight, if I'm honest. I'm looking forward to it because it's not going to cheer me up. And then after that, I will be back on Sunday to do Arsenal versus Aston Villa in the WSL. And then next week, the preview for Chelsea at some point. But I will also be doing Arsenal women's game that weekend as well. I can't remember who we're playing now. I think it might be Bristol City. But guys, really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you ever so much. Guys, if you are watching this back, please do put your ratings in the comments. I'd be really interested to see them all. But yeah, take care, everyone. I will speak to you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.